Welcome everybody to my presentation on the starting period of chicken. We will focus on pullets as well as on broiler, and we will focus also on the intestinal development of the young chicken. So to start with pullets, I would like to mention that this young lady, this day-old chick, is responsible later to produce a huge amount of eggs in the future. So it is worth to invest a lot of attention to this small chicken, because she will be the fundament for later production. And if the fundament is not constructed in the right way, we will fail to reach the right height of the tower, of the egg tower. So she's small and she deserves a lot of attention. So just to make you a little bit more sensitive to the developments in the laying hen genetics, you can see that over the past years, the breeding companies, they did a lot of efforts to improve the output of the eggs, and you can see that they did this by extending the production period and the late persistency of those birds. And if you look just on the weeks of production, the weeks that we have for rearing will stay always the same. So in proportion, we have less time available to prepare our pullets for a longer production time. So in the past, when we kept them for, let's say, 18 weeks, we had 1/4 of the time for investing in the rearing, and nowadays it is below 20%, yeah? So you have less time available to prepare her for more production. And so you have to be even more sensitive how you help her to get this egg output. I would like to share this nice graph with you that Hendrix Genetics shared with us at the beginning of this year. So they correlated some production traits on different ages of the pullets. And you can see here, other than I would have expected, that the 5th week's body weight is highly correlated to later performance. So it is not, as we always think, that the 16 weeks body weight is so important for the birds. It is also, but you can see, especially in this graph, that it starts much earlier, that we have impact on later performance. And you can see here the first slide, or the first row, where they correlated to early maturity. So peak production is correlated more highly to the 5th week body weight than to the 16 weeks body weight. And also the later production, you can see here, with 72 weeks, is even much more higher correlated with later egg production than with 16 weeks. So you can understand now why the starting period of the chicks is of such importance. And we will see later maybe some explanation why this is the case. For broiler, we always think it is very easy to grow broiler, yeah? You only need a day-old chick of very good quality. Then, of course, we always have a very good feed available to let them grow. And then, of course, you have to make some adjustments for the temperature, and then you will always get a very good result. But you know from the practice that it is not always like this. And we know also that the production cycles for broiler are going shorter and shorter. So in Germany, it is around 6 weeks that we keep broilers. In other countries, like Saudi Arabia, it can be much shorter. And if we lose or have a negative impact of only 1 day of performance, we will have a big impact on the whole production cycle. So we have to keep them running from the beginning onwards. And I was bringing to you this nice chart where you can see that if the feed intake of broiler is delayed by only 1 day, you will directly have a big impact on the 2 weeks body weight. And we want the birds normally to double within, not to double, with 7 days, that they have 5 times the day-old chick weight. So if you receive a chick of 40 grams, it should have around 200 grams after 1 week. So of course you have to, when you take care of your chicken, you have to check with your eyes, with your hands and with everything you have available, how they feel. And one of the main topics that we want to have them is that they start to eat right from the beginning. And we can check if they had enough feed intake after some hours. So you just take some of the day-old chicks and check on the crop fill of those birds, and then you have an impression if all of them have got enough food or not. And if not, you have to react directly to avoid that you have a delay of performance. So we need to understand a little bit more especially for the starting period, some physiology of the birds, some management tools, and of course nutrition to have a good performance. So it is always and again interesting to explain that poultry has a very short digestive tract in comparison to other farm animals, for example pig or cattle. Here you can see the length of the intestine in correlation to the body size, and you can see that for poultry it is the shortest. So this means on the one hand the feed has only a short time resisting in the body and then it is outside again. So it is in poultry maybe 4 to 5 hours that it is inside the body and that the body can extract the nutrients from there. In pigs, for example, it is like 24 hours that the feed remains inside the body. The second point I would like to mention is if you have a challenge on the intestine of the birds, the surface is you have directly a bigger impact on the surface of the intestine and then less space available to absorb the nutrients. In pigs, because it is longer, and if you have there some challenges, you still have enough space available to absorb the nutrients. Then also this slide I find very interesting because we can see that some of the intestinal organs like the crop, the proventriculus and also the gizzard has the highest relative size in correlation to the age when the birds are young. So when they are growing older, the intestinal organs not developing as fast as the rest of the body. This means when the birds are young, they have the highest relative weight of the intestinal organs. And we have to look that we allow the birds to grow the intestinal organs as well as the rest of the body because we need these organs to absorb the nutrients. And so you can see here in the example of the gizzard that we have some tools to help the birds to develop these organs well. So here you can see the green dotted line where they fed the birds also with a whole grain to give the feed more structure and to give the gizzard more work to do and to develop it well. And then it can split up the nutrients more easy for the bird. So if we open birds, we don't want only to see a well-developed gizzard or a very heavy gizzard, we also look on the shape. So here you can see on the left side a shape that we don't like to see because there is not a clear barrier between the proventriculus and the gizzard. And we want to have this gizzard, this barrier very clearly defined because we want not the feed to rush from the proventriculus through the gizzard, through the small intestine, but to let it stay as long as possible in the acid environment of the gizzard so that the digestive enzymes can work very well and help the body to split up the nutrients that they need for growth or for later egg production. And here you can see clearly that if we have a well-developed gizzard, we also have a better absorption of the nutrients. So you can see here on the left side, better digestibility of proteins and also a better use of the energy inside the feed if the gizzard is well developed. And then it is no wonder that we can see in publications from Aviagen that if we feed to the birds feed with good structure, that we have better live weight gains and lower feed conversion. Instead, if we feed them only fine particles, then we will lose on live weight gains and also on feed conversion ratio. Okay, if we look on the physiological changes during the first 2 weeks, we have to admit that there are some changes going on inside the animal. So the immune system is going from passive immunity to active immunity. This is also consuming energy from the animal. Then the digestive system is growing and also growing fast, and we have the better feed conversion rate at young ages. The skeletal system is also developing fast. We will come to this later. And of course, we have to remember always that when a day-old chick hatches, it is not fully able to maintain his body heat by himself. No, it is dependent on external sources. And especially in broilers, after 20 days or so, the body heat is getting very high, and we have to help them to cool it down again. So when we receive chick, we have to make sure that the barn is, of course, well prepared. It seems very easy, but we see a lot of times that still some mistakes are happening there. So, of course, it is normal that we place them only in a cleaned and well-equipped house. And, of course, we want to have, especially in the first days, correct barn temperature. And here I would like to mention that we not only look for the air temperature, but also for the concrete temperature, because it is important that the concrete floor below the litter is also on a good temperature, because otherwise the cold will getting through the litter and will make the day-old chicks feel uncomfortable again, even though the air temperature is correct. And this means that we also have to measure the air temperature not on our eye level where we can easily read it. No, we have to detect it on floor level there where the chickens are and not where we are. Okay, and then with some behavioral observations, we can just make our conclusions if the chickens are feeling well. So you can see here that we want to have them well distributed in the whole house. And if they all go to one side of the chicken house, this means maybe there is a draft. If they all go to the walls, it's maybe too hot, and they search for the coldness of the stones. And because if you don't have a thermometer available to measure their cloacal temperature, you can just put the legs on your cheeks, and if they feel the same temperature as your cheek, they should have the correct body temperature at that time. So the starting period, of course, begins already in the hatchery. So we have, of course, to transport the chicks as fast as possible from the hatchery to the farm. This is not always possible. Sometimes they have holding times. We have to vaccinate them. Sometimes the transportation takes a long time. So even more important that the barn is well prepared. And I'm bringing a picture for you from Germany where they place some additional feed on chick paper just to attract the chicken to eat directly, to have direct feed intake. And of course in the feeders there's also feed, plenty of it. So because we want to help the birds to absorb the yolk sac as fast as possible, you know that it can supply them for the first 2 to 3 days with nutrients and also with some hydration, you can say. But of course, we want them to absorb it as fast as possible because the yolk sac is also a herd for bacterial infections. So it's not only nutrient supply, it can also help the bird to get bacteria enter into the body. And the faster, there's a lot of investigations that show the faster the bird gets something to eat, the easier it will absorb the yolk sac. And here you have an example of intestinal development if the birds are fed directly after hatch or if they are withdrawn from feed and water for some time. And you can see clearly that if they have received feed and water, the intestinal villi are developed well, they are long, they are in well shape, and they have enough space to absorb nutrients and help the birds for good performance. And why do we need villi which are very well developed? Because during production we will face from time to time intestinal challenges, and if the villi are infected, for example, by a coccidiosis outbreak, and the villi is very long and well developed, it still remains some surface for nutrient absorption. If the villi is already short and it is infected again with an intestinal challenge, there will remain nearly no space for nutrient absorption. So that's why we need from the beginning onward good developed villi. And from our own experience, that we know that we can help the intestinal health of the birds with in the presence of essential oils. And we did some trials with turkey poults, which are most sensitive to coccidiosis infection. And we supplied them with a combination of different essential oils and observed how the oocyst shedding in the litter will be in comparison to a control group which didn't receive any essential oils. And you can see at day 20 where the peak shedding of oocyst in the droppings will appear. The control group has a very high amount of oocysts in the droppings, whereas the trial group is nearly on zero. And just remember the number of 20 days. If we switch to the next slide, we can see on the performance level of the birds that in the beginning, they all perform the same. So the essential oils didn't help the bird without any challenge. But then with 20 days, when the oocyst shedding is on its peak, you can see that the performance will be better when we help the birds with essential oils. Then another topic I would like to touch is water intake, because we have to make sure that the birds start directly after placement in the farm with drinking, and this is very important because we can observe a lot of times that the chicks arrive dehydrated in the farm, and we have to help them to have easily access to, of course, good quality drinking water, and we can also help exhausted chicks to find the drinking lines by putting them beside it. And of course, this is important because without sufficient water intake, we also won't see enough feed intake. If possible or available, it is always one option to supply them also with liquid vitamins or amino acids via the drinking lines. If we now don't look only on the body weight development of the chicken, but also on the body composition of the birds, it is interesting to see how the different tissues develop. And you can see that especially in the beginning, the birds are developing protein, so let's say muscles, and the skeleton, so bones. And if you remember that the pullets' body weight with 5 weeks is highly correlated to later production persistency, it is also logical because at that point of time she has a very important time of skeletal development, and if the skeletal is developed well, she has later better chance to produce eggs with a good shell, and this is what counts for our productivity of the birds. For broiler, of course, the beginning is for good muscle development, so breast muscle development. And there is a study which I found interesting to show you, where you can see that especially in the beginning, higher amino acid levels will lead directly to a better body weight development of the birds. And they did this trial with different protein or amino acids level and different energy levels. And you can see the red line is where they have fat, high amino acids levels and low energy levels. And this shows you that especially in a pre-starter diet, the amino acid levels are more important than the energy value. Yeah, to summarize my presentation, I just took a picture from Aviagen, which I found interesting. So, of course, to have a good starting period of the bird, we need to have a good management on the farm, so temperature, ventilation, biosecurity, and then from a feed point of view, that is where the Miavit part starts to work, is that we focus on early gut development and gut health, that we have to help them during challenging situations. And then, of course, that we always choose the right feed, the right feeding phases, the right raw materials and feed additives to support our birds in any kind of situation. So that was it from my side. Thank you very much.